Hi, I'm Greg Dell with Dell Disability Lawyers, joined by attorney Alex Palamara, and today we're going to talk about one of Alex's resolved long-term disability insurance cases. And Alex, we love to talk about these success stories for a variety of reasons. Number one, it means that another one of our clients won their disability benefits. Number two is that it provides a lot of helpful tips for people who have a long-term disability claim and want to know what to expect with their particular disability insurance company. So give us the background of this particular claim, and then we'll get into the strategies that you put in place in order to help secure benefits for your client.
Sure, and this case is actually very unique. I mean, first and foremost, this ended up being a lawsuit that we won. There was a successful lawsuit. Our client is now back on claim receiving benefits. But it all started out actually in 1996. Our client was working for SunTrust Bank. SunTrust banks no longer exist. Everyone might know that. But at the time, she worked as a consumer loan sales coordinator for SunTrust banks. Worked there for almost about 10 years, and she suffered from lupus and the associated symptoms with lupus and back issues, memory issues, neck issues, and gastrointestinal issues. And unfortunately, in about 2004, 2005, she became disabled. We were not involved at the time. Thankfully, SunTrust, her old employer, provided its employees with long-term disability insurance coverage. What's interesting about this SunTrust policy, and this is very important, well, first and foremost, it was a self-insured policy, meaning that if a person becomes disabled, there might be a third-party administrator, which there was, Sedgwick, makes the decision whether you're disabled or not, but SunTrust actually pays the long-term disability benefits. So, and another thing that's really interesting about this policy, it's an old policy, I think it was actually written in 1980, is stated in order to be considered disabled, if you, like a typical definition of disability, you have to show that you're unable to perform the duties of your own occupation. But this policy says if the Social Security Administration finds you disabled, you are disabled and we'll pay you benefits. So lo and behold, this lady applied for long-term disability and applied for Social Security disability. And thankfully, Social Security found her to be disabled. So SunTrust started paying her claim, and Sedgwick agreed we have to pay your benefits, and SunTrust started paying her claim. The lady was on claim for almost 15 years. This is where things actually get kind of interesting. So in December of 2019, a big merger occurred. SunTrust merged with BB&T Bank. Now, there's no way this lady ever thought that this merger would have any impact on her long-term disability claim, but lo and behold, it did. So when these two banks merged, one of the biggest mergers ever, it created a new bank called Truist, which is still out there today. It's been around for the last couple of years. So when Truist got involved, what they did is they kind of changed the employee benefits for their own employees, for their active employees, and even for the past employees that were on long-term disability benefits. So with regards to long-term disability claims, Truist went out and instead of using the old SunTrust self-insured policy, they went to the Hartford and said, Hartford, we want you to insure our employees for long-term disability claims. So they got a policy with the Hartford, and it's no longer a self-insured policy, it's a policy that Hartford would pay. For the old employees, that people were on the SunTrust long-term disability plan, what they did was they said the same policy provisions are going to be in effect, but now it's going to be an insured policy through the Hartford. So Hartford essentially stated, we'll take on your new long-term disability coverage, and we'll even start paying the benefits for the people that are on claim. I'm sure it was only a handful of people, or maybe a couple hundred people, who knows. But Hartford took on the financial responsibility to pay under this policy, under this old policy. So that occurred in December.
But how was Truist, under this new merger, able to change the terms of the prior long-term disability policy?
They didn't change the terms. All the terms will still be in effect. This is what they told her. All the terms will still be in effect. However, the payer of benefits and the administrator of benefits would now be the Hartford. Instead of being Sedgwick or SunTrust paying the benefits, now the Hartford is paying your long-term disability claim.
But was it still that you have to be approved by Social Security disability to get benefits?
Of course, or it should have been.
Right.
And that's where we get to this big problem. So in December of 2019, she gets a letter from the Hartford saying, hello, we're the Hartford. We're taking over the paying of your claim and the administering of your claim, and all the plan provisions are going to be the same. So this is December 2019. In April of 2020 comes a denial letter. 4 months, like they couldn't wait to deny this claim. 4 months later, a denial letter comes, and it states, you have not provided updated proof of your claim. So with the help of her husband/caretaker, they sent in more records. Lo and behold, 2 months later in June, she gets a letter saying, we're reinstating your claim. Relieved, she thought everything is good now. A month later, July of 2020, the same claims analyst sends another denial letter. And it states, we find that you don't satisfy the definition of disability. We think there's other occupations you can perform. Here's a list of occupations that you can perform. Now, what's interesting about this denial letter and the original denial letter is that it never cites the definition of disability. One thing all denial letters always do is cite the relevant policy provisions,
Right.
so that the insured knows, what the parameters of the claim are. These two denial letters did not. With the help of her husband and caretaker, they file an appeal saying, listen, she's still disabled, get her back on claim, here's additional medical records. And they thought, like the last denial, that she'd be reinstated. Unfortunately, upon the appeal review, they upheld the denial. And
So this was after she's already had been paid for 16 years.
Correct.
Nothing changed. She didn't get better. Obviously, she likely got worse. And you started the discussion talking about the multitude of medical issues she had, which are all mostly degenerative in nature.
Well, the appeal she filed on her own with her husband, all right? And unfortunately, the appeal, they focused on all these medical issues. But what they didn't focus on, what they didn't know they should have focused on, is the policy provisions, what it means to be disabled under the policy. That's the most important thing with this case. So an appeal denial comes out, and it ends up being the final denial. They're out of administrative remedies at this point. And what does this final denial letter also do? It fails to cite the definition of disability. So she was ready to give up. I mean, she probably had at this time, about 27 months left on her policy. I think she was 62 and a half or almost 63 years old. The policy, I mean, her monthly benefit is offset by the Social Security benefit, so it's not the biggest monthly benefit. I think she basically said to herself, why am I going to fight this? No attorney's going to take this on because it's so limited in recovery. But they went ahead and they found us on the internet and they contacted me and we spoke, and I said to myself, something smells fishy here. None of the denial letters are citing to the definition of disability or what it is. So we got a copy of the policy. The policy was actually written in 2000 and in December of 2000, January of 2020. But it cited the relevant policy language from 1980. And I found the definition of disability, and I called the client and I go, wait a minute, are you still receiving disability insurance benefits from Social Security Administration? She said, certainly, nothing's ever changed. So I knew that we had a case here, and I knew that we were going to win this case. So I quickly went ahead and drafted a complaint, filed it in federal court, and I cited the relevant policy language. I cited all the history that I went through here. And initially, Hartford was a little hesitant to agree with us. And they actually gave us a copy of a policy that was written, they actually sent us a policy that was for the new Truist employees, not the people that were already on claim, but the new Truist employees. And they said, here's the definition of disability. You're wrong, Alex. I said, no, I'm not wrong. Here's the policy. I attached it to my complaint. It's been filed with the courts. Here's the policy that's governing this claim. It took about a month or so, but the Hartford's attorney that we deal with on a regular basis is a stand-up guy and said, Alex, you are right. We're putting her back on claim. And we agreed to that because my client at this point had been off claim for about 17 months or so. Her family's struggling financially. It was the best bet to get her benefits, her back benefits paid, and her best bet to ensure that her benefits, that she remains on claim until the policy expires, which is, I believe, at age 65. So to this day, she's back on claim. But this case is just so important because there's a lot of things that people have to realize is that the appeal, I mean, your claim might be denied, and the appeal is the most important thing of your claim. And you might want to argue that I am medically disabled, but sometimes arguing that is not enough. You have to actually know the policy and know how to cite to the relevant policy language to win these claims. If they would have done that in the appeal, if they would have known to have done that, they could have maybe saved themselves about a year of waiting for these benefits. Unfortunately, they came to us. They didn't give up. They came to us, and we filed this lawsuit and won this lawsuit for them.
Well, it all starts with the policy language, and that's a fundamental review that you do as an attorney when you review a file, but most claimants don't. These aren't written in the most plain language, so it's difficult for claimants to understand that. So it was great that you were able to basically find a technicality of straight interpretation of the policy to say, hey, look, you multi-billion-dollar Hartford company, you guys are getting this wrong, and you're kind of screwing this lady over amongst a giant merger between SunTrust and BB&T Bank, which is now Truist. So hopefully this isn't happening to other people, but if it is, obviously we know exactly how to help them and help get their benefits reinstated, assuming they're still on the Social Security disability. Now, like you said, very rare definition do we see where if you're approved by Social Security, then you're going to get your long-term disability, because most disability companies say, well, they have a different standard than us and we're not obligated to follow them. So someone certainly shouldn't think that if they have Social Security, then they're going to keep their long-term disability, because it doesn't work like that.
But you always need to review the policy, and I have to question whether the Hartford's employees here had nefarious intent here to ignore the policy language and deny this claim. So just because you get denied, do not give up. There's always hope for your claim, whether it's proving that you're disabled or finding the relevant provisions of the policy. But the fact that they didn't cite to the policy language tells me that something fishy was going on over there, that these people probably acted a little bit immorally here. And thankfully, the attorney did the right thing and agreed with our lawsuit.
Right. Well, sometimes it happens. It's not the first time we've seen it with Hartford. It's sad. We did a video recently where Hartford denied someone after 22 years. Here's your claim after 15, 16 years. So there's no remorse or bad feelings from Hartford. When they deny you, they just cut you off and they're like, go figure it out. And it's crazy to even say to this woman, at 63 years old, well, you haven't worked in 16 years, we think you can go get a job. And I said this earlier, imagine when she goes to apply for the job and you're the one offering the job, and you look at her resume and go, so what have you been doing the last 16 years? And she goes, oh, I was disabled, I can't work. And I still don't think I can work, but my disability insurance company says I'm ready to go back to work at the age of 63. It's crazy. It's beyond the realm of reasonableness. So congratulations on winning this lawsuit. If you're someone out there who has one of these policies with Truist, or you're a Hartford disability policy holder and you need help with your claim, feel free to reach out to Alex or myself. No matter where you live in the country, we'll immediately provide you with a free phone consultation, and we look forward to assisting you should you need us in the future. Hi, I'm Gregory Dell, the managing attorney of Dell Disability Lawyers, and I hope you find the video you just watched helpful. We put these videos out all of the time, and we'd love if you would subscribe to our YouTube channel. Beyond our videos on our YouTube channel, we also have lots of information available on our website at diattorney.com, and we encourage you to come to our website. The goal is that we want you to be educated about the disability insurance process, and when you get to our website, you'll see that we have information all about your specific disability insurance company, your occupation, and your medical condition. And we've designed our website such that you can easily search our website to find things that you may specifically be looking for. Now, at our website, we have thousands and thousands of pages of information, hundreds of videos that you can search, plus we're building a section of reviews of all the disability insurance companies, and we have the Ask Our Lawyer section where you can go ahead and ask us any questions that you may have. Now, we realize that you may not need us right now, but you may need us in the future to help you with your disability claim, and we think one of the best ways to keep in touch is by clicking the button below and subscribing to our channel. And most importantly, again, no matter where you live in the country, we're always available. Just go ahead and give us a call. We're happy to discuss your claim and let you know immediately if we can help you.